Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Happy 2024. I wanted to talk to you guys about a potential new series that I've been working on, something I've been thinking about for a while, and so today I felt like it was the right time to actually start it. So I want to introduce this new series called Therapy in Motion, where I do something active, and while doing that I unpack something that I've been thinking about and just record and discuss this with you guys. So today we're out here in Los Angeles, one of my favorite spots that I discovered when I moved here. It's the Rio Hondo Flats. This place is kind of a hidden gem to me because it's somewhat near the city, but it's also like kind of secluded. You wouldn't know that this spot existed from the sides of the road. I actually discovered this when I first was biking down the Rio Hondo bike path, and from there I was just test flying my drone and then found this spot, and it's actually just so cool to see. When there's rainier weather too, it's like really pretty, and hopefully one of those days I'll get to show you that shot. So the idea for this series started sometime last year. I was having a lot of these deep discussions with friends. I was going to some of my therapy sessions and unpacking a lot of things and just in my thoughts. And at the end of these events, I kept thinking, why didn't I record this or make this into something like a YouTube video or a podcast? And then I'd be like, nah, whatever. There's probably already this kind of perspective out there already. But as I thought more about it, I just realized there's nothing wrong with contributing more thoughts about things, and everyone's experience is unique. So felt empowered to share what I've experienced and the thoughts that I was going through, and what other people could benefit from. However, towards the end of last year, I was finding it difficult to explore my creative side. I was discovering that I was feeling really this mental block after my last video, which was on my 1 year of skydiving. If you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest you check it out after this one. But yeah, after I finished that video, I was feeling a mental block, and I was really fatigued, and I felt like I couldn't continue doing a lot of the creative things and projects that were easy to come up with, but executing them was just incredibly difficult at the time. So actually, for this first vlog, I wanted to kind of paint the picture of my experience, the process that I went through to kind of stop the mental fatigue, and just ways that I motivated myself again, doing that by documenting it through video content. So for the past few months, I was feeling very stressed out. I was experiencing a lot of burnout from work, and it was just, that's a very common thing that we probably share at any job. There's usually one point that we burn out, but I was feeling it these past few months very strongly, and it was to a point where this was expanding further than work. It wasn't just at the workplace, but it was starting to seep into everything else that I was doing. My patience for handling things was a lot shorter, and I was noticing I was getting angry a lot quicker. Another problem that I was also noticing was just my negative attitude towards a lot of things that were in my expressions and my conversations with people. And I can pick up on that with other people, and this time I was kind of picking up on it with my own self. And I was starting to become aware, and I was just like, man, I don't think that's something I normally do or want to be, and what do we need to do about it, This might be a reference for my generation in particular, but if you've ever played the game The Sims, it's basically where you simulate a virtual person and how they live. And they have different needs to stay happy, and those needs have to be met, otherwise they don't feel motivated to do stuff. So there's needs like, your hunger, your sleep, your social, all these little bars that you have to keep high. And if, once you keep them high, the sim stays happy and you can do things. Well, for myself, and using this analogy, I was really feeling like I had a creative bar that was depleted to zero, and I could not figure out how to get that bar back up. I was running back to things that I regularly do. Those are things like working out, sky therapy, where I just dive out of planes and that just jump starts my mind again. However, those things weren't doing it. Like, it wasn't enough to kind of just reset. And I was kind of realizing like I was dealing with something new that wasn't going to be fixed by the regular means, and that I was going to need to explore some other ways on how I was going to conquer this problem. When I was doing some research online, I came across this article, this link here from the Harvard Business Review, with 6 very, very good pointers on what work burnout was. And I really related to all 6 of them, and so I'm going to talk about them here and see, how they applied to my experience and why I was feeling this work burnout and this mental fatigue. So, workload. There was a lot of work that was on my agenda every day, and it was just kind of like having these short deadlines, and it was popping up all the time, and it really was disruptive with me being able to plan out my day, because I'd have this whole plan and then I have to kind of just drop everything I was doing. There's the second pointer, perceived lack of control. So it's like, yeah, I was losing control of the things that I had planned out for the day, and it made me have to shift my focus on these like immediate requests. It became to a point where things at work would just show up so much that I kind of just stopped planning out my days, because I knew the plan was just going to get, roiled completely, and I'd have to just adjust completely. I just realized that. So the third pointer was reward, right? And the value of what I was doing just didn't feel like it was being recognized. I was actually recognizing a lot of focuses still on negative things that would happen, when it's like, well, all this other work that was being done, I wasn't seeing that being recognized. The fourth thing is community. And the big pointer in the article about what it talked about was how work burnout is actually contagious. And when I was syncing up with my team, I was just noticing this was just such a common feeling among all of us. I wasn't the only one feeling this way. The fifth one was fairness. So I know fairness can be subjective. However, one thing that I would say is neutral that I could recognize in terms of fairness was how many of these requests that were coming into my team, they truly intersect with our team. A lot of other teams rely on my team for some of the things that they do. I noticed that if I had something immediate, like I regularly wouldn't put that kind of request on other teams. I would try to schedule it, try to make like as much effort as I could to figure it out myself. And yet I felt like I was figuring out my requests and then also having to do a lot of these requests for other people. So it just didn't come out as very fair, and there just isn't really some neutral ground there. And then the last part, which is values mismatched. And I think this is actually an accumulation of all 5 of the top pointers before it. I know the values of what the company was feeling and what it was gaining from me. It didn't feel like it was two-way at this point. My own values for the type of goals that I try to keep for myself weren't being met. And it was just incredibly hard to recognize my own values when I'm putting a lot of other values in front of my own, right? They weren't personally mine. So while I was exploring each of these problems and understanding the problem better, one of the important reminders that I kept finding myself falling back onto was that I knew I had control over all of these situations. I knew that it was a situation that wasn't going to last forever. I know that it felt pretty long, that's for sure, the past 3-4 months. But the important part here was that I knew that there were things in my control and I needed to start taking control of them. So the first part was addressing the problem directly. This was very crucial, is that I let my manager know that I was feeling a lot of work burnout, which was a very good idea. But I gained his support when viewing what my workload capacity was, and how all of these other requests were affecting me and the teamwork that I could actually provide and how that was being affected. The constant requesters, like drop everything you're doing, I need you to help me right now type of mentality. I figured out, like every request is going to be like that, or at least framed that way. So it's really up to me on how I prioritize a lot of my tasks and what I take control over, and being able to set boundaries that I wanted to stick to, which actually goes into my second point, was that the boundaries needed to be enforced. I needed to actually abide by them. While I trust my entire team to excel at everything that they do, there's a capacity that all of us will have on being able to do that, and we're not an unlimited source of being able to just fulfill all these things. So for me, it was just recognizing that I have boundaries that I needed to enforce, that it's okay to delay requests or check on the bandwidth that I'm having, check on my team's bandwidth. And, last resort is if I don't feel like any of that can be met for this person's request, especially if they're sending it off as kind of like, help me now and needs to be fixed. It's kind of like, okay, well, escalate that above. That's not, I don't want to say it's not my job, but it's one of those things, and it's like, well, the decision needs to come even higher. There's only so much in my ability that I can do. It's time to have other people step in and engage whether that's something that can be done or should be done at that time, given that there needs to be a balance for us to be able to do our work and then to do these requests that come in. And then as for after hours work, I just practice a lot of just personal time, shutting off the work side as much as I possibly can. I don't check my email. The WebEx messages can wait until the next day. And I know for myself, if there's an actual emergency, it can come directly from someone above me who can reach out to me, right? And let me know if that's like something that needs to be taken care of. So I just try to abide by that boundary, keep work scheduled if it needs to be after hours, or if it's like some type of work emergency. The third thing is me recognizing that me being not motivated to do anything on my free time was perfectly okay. Me just running into not being motivated to do anything or feeling like I could do anything was just my body's natural emergency response saying, hey, it's time to slow down. We need to just take a break and not do anything. So that's exactly what I started doing. Was I started practicing just consuming things in front of me without needing to always use my mind to drive myself to do something. So for example, a really good example right now is I last month just watched all of the Spider-Man movies. And this might come as a surprise, but I haven't seen Spider-Man movies since Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man. And I'm embarrassed a bit to admit it, but I totally have now this late crush on Andrew Garfield. He was an amazing Spider-Man. But I also recognize that I am completely tired of the Marvel Universe, and I don't think I want to watch any of those movies again. So the last thing that I kind of want to sum things up to was this old conversation that I had with a coworker. This is a coworker that is such an insightful person. I met her at my previous job, and we meet up for coffee and tea every once in a while, and we just get into some really deep discussions. Shout out to Ruchi if you're watching this. One of the important things that we discussed in that conversation was how we would do something creative at work, and say we get older, when we're looking back and looking at what we were proud of doing, really the things that we think we're going to be remembered were things that fit in our values, things that we found valuable in the work that we did. And so analyzing the overall picture was important, because then you could see where your creativity goes and what kind of value comes out of it. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to keep in mind as I keep doing things forward, especially in my work career, about the things that I want to look back at and realize there was a lot of value, a lot of creativity I put into those things, and what became of it, and what kind of impact did it have. So for myself, I just think it's having more awareness and actively thinking about where my creativity is going is something that allows me to distribute it better, and then making sure that my values are met in the process. So how are things today? I'd say I've definitely recovered a lot from the burnout. I think that with this new year starting, it was a really good way for me to reset and set new goals, which just caused me to be a lot more motivated. After discovering a lot of this burnout, my thought process has been shifting, and I've been more focused on setting goals for the long term, the longevity of how those goals can be met and how those will apply to me and be applied when I'm much older. I don't know, maybe this is a midlife crisis of my 30s. I don't know if I hit that stage. And also, I've been trying to explore more of LA. I really realized that I have a huge privilege of the transit system that's here. I had never really grown up too much using transit, but I have access to a really good, good routes on the bus. I have a monorail that's really close. I'm pretty close to LA Union Station, so if I want to take a train somewhere, Like I did last year, I went and took the Starlight train all the way up to Washington from LA. And so I really want to explore more of those types of things this year. And I'm very motivated to keep doing that, especially right now. I've got some pretty cool plans surrounding like taking the train. So what about you all? You know, what are some things that you have done to kind of get out of a burnout? And what were some of the key pointers that you recognized when that burnout was going to be existing for a while? And what were some of the steps that you took to overcome that? I'm very curious about your guys' approaches. I also would love to hear if you have any 2024 goals that you've set this year, maybe some new motivators. So if you've watched to the end, I really appreciate you. I really want to keep going with this series, and it actually is just therapeutic for me to just talk to the camera. It was just like such a nice peaceful walk for me, so I hope in some sense it was peaceful for you too. If you can, you know, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to leave a comment if there's any topics that you'd like me to cover. I have a huge list of things that I want to go over, but I definitely read all the comments and I'll take those suggestions, you know, into consideration. So thank you for tuning in. Happy 2024, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.